So, welcome to our first day of our Paint and Petal retreat. And for those of you who are, seeing me for the first time, I'm Jillian. I'm based in Singapore, and I was not always a watercolor artist before. My background was actually in psychology. So I've done psychology for a while, and then I decided to get into watercolor. But, I've always been a perpetual doodler when I was young. So I thought that I want to start off today's session sharing with you my screen to showcase to you where I started. Because I think it's really, really important for us to do that, considering many of us, oh, look, my kids' crayons are here. Everything is in the frame. Wow. But I thought I share with you the very important thing is that, when you come to this retreat, and one of the things that you are thinking about and wanting to do is really, I want to paint like Jillian. I want to be where she's at. And I just want to start the very first part of this retreat telling you that we all started at different points in our journey. And this is where I want to start off by telling you that the stage that you are in might be a different reflection. And as a result, we are going to have different results. This is where I started, and this is not when I first started because I couldn't find my when I first started sketchbook. My kids probably have it somewhere. And this here are pieces of work that I did when I decided to explore using cotton paper. And I thought that these were good representations of my old work just because, okay, so this one says 28 January 2017. And I thought that I decided to bring all of this up and share it with you because today, this is where I'm at with my paintings. And here I would probably be at around stage 2. And here is where I am at stage 4 or 5. And I just want to share this and bring this up straight away because it's very easy for us to go into a retreat and start going, I can't do this because it doesn't look anything like Jillian's. And that's why I mapped out the artist passage. And the whole point of that, and that's also why I decided to host it in the artist passage. And all of these pieces of artwork all have one commonality, and that is brushwork, which is why I decided that for this retreat, we are spending 5 beautiful days with our brushes and understanding how our brush can capture different moods and emotions. Because one of the misconceptions many of us have is that brushwork is only for a stage 1 artist or that it's the only kind of basic type of skill. And we forget that our brush is more than just a paint applicator. It is also going to be your water control tool, and that's how you get paintings like this, where it is watery, you get lots of nice soft edges and layers. And this is all captured because of our brush and knowing how much paint and water ratio to use with our brush. Similarly with this one, where we are using dry brush marks. So I think I want to start off with letting you know where I got started with first, so that that way you actually get a sense of where you are in your journey and start to see beyond the pretty grid that you maybe have come to know me from. You know, maybe you came to my Instagram and it was the time where I was showing paintings like these and you go like, oh, I want to paint like Jillian. But it started off like this. And I think that it's so important for us to really see the roots that sometimes are not showing above the ground and appreciate them. And I always, always date and I keep my work as well. So I want to start off with a couple of fun things. Now, since you say you've got your brush with you, let's grab it. And in the meantime, I'm just going to bring my camera closer because I know one of the things that I tend to get caught up doing is talking a lot because I love to talk. And I'm very passionate about sharing all these things about watercolor. And I thought that I want to do an exercise with you right away. But before we do that, let's just take some time right now. Okay. Now you don't see my face, but what I would like you to do is I'd like you to hold your brush and kind of take a moment to just feel how it feels right now in your hand. And I think what we are doing here is we are trying to arrive. We came to this live session probably with a lot of things happening before we came in. And I want us to just really set the mindset and mind space to just be with your brush today, paying attention to how it feels, maybe taking a few deep breaths in and out, and really just arriving here with your tool. Depending on, how your morning, night, or noon felt, because we are all in different spaces. Maybe before you came here, you were coming from work, or maybe you just woke up, and there's so many different things that are happening. I just want us to all arrive here today, just spending some time with our brush. Now, I also don't want us to get caught up in what brushes we're using and which is the best brush at the moment, because I think one of the key things that I want to bring to our retreat is really just focusing on the tools that you already own and have. That said, because I have been painting for a while, I have found a brush or a few brushes that I lean towards more and like, and that's because I have built a relationship and connection with it. So this is also something that I want you to think about as you are painting. Okay, so I am just gonna take a moment to also mute everybody so that we have a little bit of time and space to make sure that we are all here today. So I am going to first start off with you grabbing your brush. My setup here, I've got my 100% cotton paper. The brush that I'm using is a round brush from Rosemary & Co. And I've got my paints here. This plate here is liquid watercolor, and this plate here is just tube paints that I've squeezed out, my favorite colors. And what we are going to do is I am going to be wanting you to just make marks. I don't want you to overthink it. I want you to just grab your brush, grab a color. I don't know what color you're going to pick, whatever that leans into your palette. And I want you to spend time now making 3 different marks. So that's your task right now. Just make 3 different marks, okay? And see what comes out as you are making those 3 different marks. It doesn't have to be meaningful marks. In fact, I just want it to be just regular, ordinary marks. So I want to know if the sound has been clear so far, and if there has been any sound that you feel is tricky right now as I'm speaking. Yes, no? Let me know in the comments, in the chat. Sounds good so far. Okay. You can hear me well. Sounds good. Thank you so much. Thank you, Carol. Thank you, Nicole. Thank you, Susie. Great. So after you've put down your 3 marks, what I want you to do now is I want you to take a pencil and I want you to write down how these marks felt. There are a few things that I want you to reflect on in terms of that feeling. I want you to ask yourself, were you holding your brush lightly? Were you holding it tightly? How far away you were holding it and at what angle? Okay, so all of these things we don't know until we actually feel it. Now, if you didn't notice these things when you're doing these 3 marks, then go back and do 3 marks and then ask yourself the same questions. So the words that I've written is actually tight and tense. And I'm writing it because I'm noticing the tension in my hands. And that tension is probably coming from the nerves doing a live session more than anything. But I want to invite you to share one or two words of what was that feeling like making those three marks when you are putting it down. I love that there are comments coming in. We've got hesitant, experimenting, unsure, confident, nervous, light, relaxed, trying to warm up, hesitant, nervous, easy. Wow, look at that. Look at all the words that are just streaming in. So I'm gonna just give you guys some time and space to make more marks if you like. And the reason why I got you to do this is because now, while I'm speaking, I would love for you to just pick up your favorite brush and really just be making more marks. I want you to explore different parts of your brush. And what we're going to do is while I'm speaking and you're listening to me, I want you to kind of focus on different things like the angle that you're holding your brush, how you push it towards you or away from you. Okay? And whenever we use our brush, it is really a dance between light pressure, deep pressure, light pressure, right? And the marks that we make is going to determine how it wants to be translated into your florals. But we're not going to think about how flowers look like right now. I want you to throw that out of the window. We're just getting to know our brush and going to be spending the next 10 minutes or so just making marks while I'm speaking. So then that way you've got something to do and also be able to listen to me. And then what I would love for us to do at the end of this live session is to photograph this so that you can share with me the different marks that you made and get the opportunity to circle the ones that you liked. Because sometimes accidental marks are the most fun as well. So what we're going to be doing is I'm going to be asking a couple of questions just to get to know you and also share with you a little bit about what we're going to be doing today and how this is going to be relevant for your practice throughout the 5 days for this retreat. So I am going to just start off by changing up um, my camera, hello, and also sharing my screen. So let's see. Now, one of the most important things that I want to start off with, friends, is just letting you know where you can find all the materials over the next 5 days. So this is our Artist Passage Hub, and this is the website that I want you to save, which is 5stages.brushmovement.com. Because after you have created a login, here is where you will be able to get access to your materials. And all of the materials will drop here, the Zoom links, everything is going to be here. So that way it's one stop and it's going to be a lot easier for you. The only thing you have to do is to really just be able to remember the website and your password. And if you have been here already and you have looked around, this is where I share with artists the different stage that they are in, and you would notice that there are 5 different stages. So take the time as well to get to know what stage you are in. And depending on what stage you are, you also get to click here where you get to learn what resources you can get so that you can learn what is important for your stage, which I feel is so crucial so that you are able to focus on what's important to you right now instead of where you should be or want to be. Because yes, everyone has dreams about wanting to be a certain place, but we end up losing focus on where we are and what's important, which I feel is going to help to sustain your practice So it's really between sprinting or jogging because this is not a race, really. But I also understand the impatience that many of us have with regard to wanting to be better and be productive and not waste supplies because I've had all of those feelings too. So I want to just show you where you can get access to all of the materials, do a little orientation, and you know, here is where you can also take your full artist passage assessment. So if you click here, it will give you the full list of milestones for your stage, which is a great checklist for you to think about whether or not you've mastered certain things. And then there is our retreat FAQ in case you've got questions like, when do you get access until, where are the live sessions and so on, our reference photos for all of the different flowers that we're doing, and our Facebook group. I encourage you to post your work in the Facebook group because that's where I will be hanging out. And that's also where I will be asking reflective questions related to the videos because I feel like it's one thing to consume the content and then it's another thing to kind of reflect on our practice because it can really deepen your understanding of the process. It's almost like me asking you earlier about the feelings that you were having with moving with your brush and also asking yourself about the angles, about, how you were holding it and how it felt. Because brushwork is a feeling and it's not a technique. So let's look at the things that you are going to find. So we also have a sneak peek for all the classes. So I've prepared Floralcast trailers because one of the things that Brush Movement members get is that they've got so many classes. You can't watch all of them. We have a Netflix library. You cannot watch, I mean, it's easier to watch a trailer and figure out if this is something that you want to try, and then you just commit 1 minute of your time versus a full half an hour and then feel like, oh, this was not for me. So that's why I have the previews here. And then each day, we will get a new class release. Now, today I dropped it a little bit earlier because we have our live session, which is why it's early. And you would already find today's class here. So if you click in and get in, you would see today's flower here. And at the same time, I just want to point out to you how I have also tagged the classes depending on what stage I feel they are in. So then it's a lot easier for you to also manage your expectations because sometimes we are like, oh no, I can't do this. And then you realize, okay, it's not at my stage. And then you get or feel kinder towards yourself, or you become curious. Or it can work another way where we go, oh, this is a stage 3 flower. I'm not stage 3. I don't want to attempt it. So there are many different ways that people will go about it. Or you could go, let me try it and see how it feels. Then it could also give you a little bit of an understanding of how sometimes when we go on YouTube, we end up selecting videos that are way beyond our level. We sometimes select a video that is actually for a stage 4 artist. And to be honest, that happens a lot because a lot of these YouTube artists are putting up their best art. I mean, no YouTube artist is going to put up their worst art or their worst skills either if they want to teach, right? So this is also something for us to think about as you are following and selecting videos to learn with. Now, after that, we also have our workshop replay. So after this session, the replay is going to go here. And also you can get the links for the next session, which is going to be on day 5. So we've got 2 live sessions, day 1 and day 5. And then, of course, the Facebook group. So this is exactly what we can get, everything in one stop. And if you've got any questions about logins and all of this, feel free to drop me an email so that I can help you to navigate that. Now, let's move on to what we are going to be doing today. Now, I want to start off with asking you, what is your brush goal today? I want you to put down in the chat what are some of the goals that you have with regard to, how do you want to learn? Whether it is to loosen up, I want to learn how to control my brush better. You can select more than one, but I want you to select the one that you feel the most for so that way you become more intentional as you are going through the practice throughout um, the retreat as well. So we've got A, B, C. I want to loosen up. I want to learn to control my brush better. I want to understand how my brush and water works. Okay, so the chat is moving really quickly now, friends, and I am just going through them. I see some of you have also selected more than one. I want my brush strokes to join in the center of my flower. I love that. I love that it's very specific. Enjoy the process, definitely. D, okay. And I recently did a YouTube video about what I believe the process is because, this is the thing about like sometimes it feels like a this blind phrase that people tell you like trust the process, but we also need to kind of know what the process is, right, in order to trust it. So I did a YouTube video on that, so I would love for you to check that out if you have time. But Nicole says water control, very exciting. Brush strokes, okay. So I love that you guys are all here, and we have just done this, the first stroke ritual, making three brush strokes and asking yourself how your body felt and what did your brush feel. And while you're listening to me speak, I would love for you guys to continue doing the brush strokes because the next thing that I am really, really curious about is really understanding what stage you are at. So if you have created an account and you have been told what stage you are at in your artist passage, I would love for you to also put down your stage in the chat so we get a sense of all the different stages. And the thing about the stages, which I'm going to share more about in detail, is that sometimes it is not absolute because we have strengths and weaknesses in different things. So you could be really strong in color. So maybe in color you're like stage 4, but then when it comes to composition, you might be in stage 1 because you're not very good with that. And sometimes you might be in between as well. So between stage 2 and 3, or sometimes you might feel like you are still um, between more than one stage even. So I feel like the stages, while they do help us to identify where we are and what we need to do, it is also not absolute. In fact, we use it as a guide more than anything. And I love seeing that we have got stage ones also and stage threes, stage twos. Very nice. So keep them coming. And this way it's also easier for you guys to band together and see like, oh, okay. And when you share your artwork in the Facebook group, I would love for you to also add in what stage you are in so that it's easier for everyone to go, this is how a stage 2 artist work looks like, or this is how a stage 4 artist work look like, right? And it's so important because sometimes we compare ourselves with someone else and we didn't realize that this person is in stage 4, and we are currently in stage 2. So I think this is also something that's really important. Now I want to just talk about the artist passage for those of you who are brand new to this. If you haven't had time to look through the portal or understand what the artist passage is, it's basically created because the first time I created Brush Movement Collective, and this was actually 2 years ago. So we actually turned 2 this month. And what happened was that I did a floral class, and this was actually a peony masterclass. Our very first floral class was just painting peonies. Oh man, I didn't take out that painting, but that peonies class, what I did was that I taught everybody how to paint the peonies, right? And what I realized when I was doing the class and everyone was doing the class and when everyone shared their artwork in the Facebook group, there was something that really struck me was that everyone was doing the exact same thing that I was doing. And this made me wonder if there was a bunch of artists who did not get the same copy or the same effect as me, feel like they were not able to share their artwork because it looked different, right? And this also made me think about how people who came into brush movement definitely come from different stages and different levels of experience. And how are we going to reflect that? This also became a conflict for me because one of the things I feel strongly about when it comes to art is that it should be a medium of expression. This is how we express ourselves, and this is how we show what we want to put on paper. And it shouldn't be based off steps. In fact, it should be based off what we know, and then we, do the thing, right? So if you've got a square brush, then you use your square brush. And if you love to use neon colors, then you add neon colors. And that was something that I felt very strongly for. And this is where I developed the 5 stages of the artist passage to showcase the different skills that each stage should focus on, so that it's going to be a lot easier for artists to then focus on these skills, so that the next time they get to the next stage, they get an easier time, and that the skills kind of scaffold on one another. So I want to just share with you why I feel that brushwork is not just a stage 1 skill. I'm going to show you how brushwork looks like across stage 2, 3, 4, and you'll be surprised, 5. Okay, so let's just take a look at that. And before we do that, now we know that in watercolor paintings, this is the entire list. It's probably more than this. But in order to just share with you that there's 5,000 things that we can focus on over the next 5 days, we're just focusing on one thing, and that is brushwork. But that's it. Across all of these things, the commonality is still brushwork. In order for you to do water management, you also need your brush. In order for you to do dry brush, you need your brush. In order to do lifting, positive and negative, you also need your brush. So all of these skills really has that common dimension, or currency, which is brush. And with that, this is how each stage looks like when it comes to brushwork. Now, if you're in stage 1, you're really just understanding the parts of your brush and how to hold it, and how to position your hand, how to achieve different marks. And I feel like many of us don't stay in stage 1 long enough. And here is where we want to jump into making something productive and meaningful. And then we jump into basically developing muscle memory, which is stage 2. And at stage 2, you are actually understanding the various brush marks and how to manipulate the strokes using your round brush. So the first 2 stages are really focused on maybe just the round brush. And when you hit stage 3, you're starting to use more than one brush. Maybe you're selecting different shapes. And this is also the time when you're in stage 3, you should already be good with water control, because we are going to be working on layers. And when you're working with layers, you need to know what is the paint and water ratio inside your brush. And with that, I'm going to ask you later about, your ability to understand water inside your brush as well, because I feel like that's also a very important thing when it comes to brushwork. Now let's look at stage 4. And this is really about using other brush shapes other than the round brush. And you are now effectively matching your brush strokes to your floral shapes. So that means when you're looking at a reference photo, you're able to duplicate, or you're able to replicate what you're trying to achieve. By the time you get to stage 5, the brushwork is really executed in a way where it is showcasing movement, and you're actually able to see that there is a lot of, life. You're able to not just be making repetitive brush marks. So it's very different across the different stages. Now, looking at this whole list right now, I would love to know, where are you guys at? And um, you know, where are you with in terms of your brushwork? Are you a stage 1, a stage 2, a stage 3, a stage 4? Let me know, because it's so exciting that we have so many possibilities with our brush. When I first started, I really thought that, okay, yeah, I'm just starting. The only thing I have to master is my brush muscle memory first to get those effortless strokes. And then as I progressed, I could see how the brush was really used in, wet in wet, and so many other things as well. So I see we've got people who are in stage 1, stage 2, 3, and then stage 4, stage 2, stage 3. Awesome. I'm so glad that you guys are still here with me and paying attention and hopefully making marks because at the end of this, I want to see everyone's marks. Um, let's see. Now, I just want to give you another example now. Now, seeing how brushwork has different stages, if you look at color, which I just changed the slides, you can also see that there is different stages just for color alone. So this also shows us that depending on what stage you are or what scale it is, there are different stages within each one. It's almost like saying what your strengths and what are some of the things that you want to work on is, right? Some of us might have strengths in wet on dry, and some of us have strengths in wet, and some of us are absolutely terrified of using any water whatsoever. And sometimes this is where we need to lean into what we are afraid of a little, because that's exactly what your art needs, whatever that you're fearful of. Um, so I want to ask the next question. So, what feels tricky with your brush right now? Let me know. Is it A, B, C, D, or E? Okay. Let's just see what we have in the chat. We've got C, C, B, C, D, E. Ruining things by overcorrecting. Yep, that's a stage 3 um scary thing. The stage 3 artists are doing their layers and they are adding more volume into their paintings. And one of the things that happen is the fear of ruining that first layer. And sometimes I think the fear of ruining that first layer, that part often comes with also not having good enough grasp with the water control in our brush. Because if you know how water works inside your brush, you don't hesitate to add the layers. You know what kind of paint and water ratio you need to add that second layer, right? D, my brushwork feels okay, but something feels emotionally missing. And I want more depth and identity. Great. I'm so glad that you guys are sharing all of this. And I think another thing that I just want to say, I want to show my face here and say this because you need to overwork. If you are overworking, good job. You need to overwork because overworking allows you to know where to stop. If you don't overwork and you're always like not pushing through further than you think you need, then you don't know where the boundary is. It's almost like you need to eat a lot so you know how it feels like to feel full, like super full, so that you stop yourself from eating more. And that's kind of the same with painting as well. You need to take that plunge and overwork every now and then, add too much water, make a little bit of mistakes, because that's how you're actually going to go, okay, next time I'm not going to use this brush, or next time I'm not going to use that much water. And it's that reflection process that really comes in, right? So I just want to bring you into our portal because I want to share with you some of the common questions that our brush movement members have with regard to brushwork. And here are some of the common questions that they have. So this is really from our brush movement portal. And every month we have a Zoom session. And during the Zoom session, there are different questions asked. And I think one of the things that I want to honor in terms of the questions asked is to make sure that if there are repeats or if there's repetition, I redirect members into the portal to tell them that question can be found in the Q&A library. So that way we keep our Zoom sessions to be productive where we have got fresh questions, right? And we're not always answering the same questions over and over. So here are things like, how do you use brushes of different shapes? Or how do you paint stems and leaves? Or even your brush selection. and troubleshooting hard lines. All of these different questions that were previously answered before are from our Q&A library. And when I pulled out this image from our library, which we have in our portal, I realized that beyond just brushwork, everything else like paint and water ratio, layering, floral perspective and direction, negative painting, masking fluid, all of this actually has brushwork components in there, even painting backgrounds, because you can't be using repetitive dabbing marks when you're painting backgrounds, for example, right? And you also need to know what kind of brush to select. So I'm really driving home that idea of how our brushes is really that one tool that is the common currency throughout our practice. Now, speaking of which, I just want to show you within our class library, one of the things that our members can find to help them with brushwork. And I find that after having so many floral classes, where I have finally been able to put everything as a playlist where we just do one skill at a time and have all of them in one place, it makes it so much easier for members to really just focus on one skill at a time. And they can also select depending on what stage they are in. So you can see that just practicing brushwork, there are a few that are more than just stage one classes as well. And here, stage 4, 5 over here, right? And this is really just in our brushwork category. Now, let me just show you another thing, which is our skill builder, because I think one of the things that our members in Brush Movement Collective also shared was that they really wanted to know how to build the skills. And I'm going to be doing some demonstration in a bit, which showcases to you the the skills that we are going to be doing when it comes to making marks. And this is really through the access that they have inside our 60-day skill builder. So for 60 days, basically, this is a full program that members actually get to do their no formula florals, which is one of my first workshops. Oh my gosh, if you see that, I did my class, my Zoom session in our master bedroom. I had no studio and table. I was barely knowing how to set up the webcam, but we did it anyway. And it's still one of, and I've always thought maybe I should refilm this class again, but I always thought that that class is so powerful because of the different strokes and the different things. And today I'm going to be showing you the 5 different strokes that you need to help you to master loose florals so that you don't have to rely on formulas. And after our building of our skills, it's so essential to apply it, which is exactly what we're doing this retreat as well. After today's workshop, for our day 2, 3, 4, and 5, you're going to get floral classes, right? And all of those floral classes are to help you to build the skills so that you can apply it. The application bit is what's going to kind of seal the deal. And then after that, you're going to reflect on what's going to be happening. And this is really the things that is going to help you to move from one stage to the next. So I just want to go back into our slides now and share with you, like what I've been sharing so far, is that your brush is not a tool. In fact, it's a partner. It manages your water, right? It floats, it blooms, everything. You can't control it. But what you want to do is you collaborate with it, which is why I said the connection bit is so important. You're going to hear me ask a lot of connection questions throughout this retreat. Like, how are you holding your brush? What did you feel as you were painting this flower? And you would see that I'm not asking you questions on like, oh, did you like what you painted? Because sometimes you might not like what you paint, but you felt different. And it's the experience that's so much more important, because when we came for watercolor, at least me, I came here because I wanted to feel that relaxation and that meditative feeling. And here is where my next question to you guys is, how much do you pay attention to water in your brush? I want to know in the chat, how much do you um, pay attention to this. Let me just see. All the time, rarely, rarely. I'm more focused on color. I love it. Um, Sometimes, okay. Sometimes I go by feel. All the time, super intentional. Great. B. Sometimes, okay. Getting better at it. That's great. Because the second lesson is that you don't master the brush. Instead, you have to listen to it. And I think it's also the same thing that I've told our members in Brush Movement in our recent workshops from Blobs to Blooms 2.0, which I talked about how even when you're working with water, it's not about controlling it. It's about observing what stage your paper is at. Where is your water moving and what is the timing of your paper? Everything is about timing. It's the same with your brush strokes also. Okay. And I think this is something that's so hard to reflect in a YouTube video. When you watch a YouTube video, it's so often that people don't actually put that in, right? Because it's very hard to describe. Now, so why we are here, we're not here about the perfect strokes. In fact, we're just going to be learning. We're not fixing. We are really just trying to get our brushes moving. So speaking of getting our brushes moving, I want us to get our brushes moving. So I'm very excited for us to do this together because now we are going to think about the way we move with our brush. Now, before I go straight into the idea of moving with our brush, I just want you to remember that when you use your round brush, you also can use your belly and all the way to the heel of the brush. Your whole handle is this long because you get to hold it at different points. And this is where you get to explore. Of course, the closer it is to your brush, the more we tend to use our fingers. So the way we move our body changes because it's a lot less likely that you will use your arm if you are holding it this close. When you're holding it this close, the part of the body that we end up using for our brush is our fingers. And I want you to remember the different joints that we have, which is our wrist and also pivoting on our elbow. So you have all this range of movements. And then if you don't pivot on your elbow, you have your entire arm. So there are so many different points of movement beyond just your brush itself, which is why I say we are connecting with our brush. Now, I would often recommend that it doesn't matter what brand or brush you use, but it matters what size you are using. I always recommend you use a size 12 and above. Don't use anything less than that because the smaller the brush, the smaller your marks. The smaller your marks, the more you're going to hold your brush like a pencil. And it defeats the purpose of loose florals because we are moving. The next thing I want to remind you is that when it comes to paper, you want to have at least A4 size. I never paint anything smaller than that, even if I'm testing or doodling, because it limits your range of movement. And brushwork is all about movement. You want to have as much space as possible because this is going to help you to get fluidity in your work. Now, let's talk about the different types of strokes that you can get. And yes, this is very, very basic. We're just going to be making marks. And for a start, the number one stroke that I love my members to always focus on is actually the thin stroke. Now, the thin stroke, I want you to try it out in different parts of your arm. We have got the thin stroke where it is just your finger. And, with your finger, you have a more limited range. And then you have your wrist, which you have a wider range. And then you have your arm. And it's not about getting as thin a line as possible. What I want you to focus on is really the movement. Now, every time I use the tip of my brush and I move across, pivoting from my elbow, I am using my pinky finger to help me to support my hand going across. So that's what you see. Now, of course, we are also holding it at a different angle when you're using the tip of your brush, often more at an upright angle. And the reason why I say that you need to practice your thin strokes is because we are trying to keep a light hand to our paintings. It's very easy to do the heavy strokes. Oh, yes, the pressure strokes, very easy because you're just putting weight down. But the light strokes is what's harder. So I want you to practice that and really understand how to actually move with light strokes. And of course, you can then vary it, move it around, and play with it where you can make light strokes moving around in different directions. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to create movement. Notice how I've never used straight lines. Nothing in nature has straight lines. Even the grass is kind of curved in some direction. So you want to do that. And while you're making these thin strokes, let's try asking yourself how it feels when your strokes are moving away from your body versus towards your body. How does it feel when it's moving side to side, right side to left side to right side, whichever side, pick a side. So how it feels, because we are going to have a preference. You see, I just did from left to right, and my stroke is nice and thin, and then I did right to left, and then straight away that mark is just so much thicker and wider. It's because I don't have that muscle memory in my arm, so I get tired and I can see that I'm just pressing it down, right? So getting that lightness and fluidity in your thin strokes is a very important one. So that is stroke number one. Now, these are great warm-up exercises, friends, because so many of the time we don't warm up. In fact, take a pause right now and tell me in the chat how many of you warm up. If you warm up, just say yes. If you don't, say no. So then those are the two options that you have. Do you warm up or not? I'm going to be super honest, friends. I don't warm up either. And I don't warm up. Um, but that's it. I have to say that one of the things that has really helped me to develop my brush mastery was this. Let's see if I've got that book here somewhere. I oh no, I don't. I started my before I did floral watercolor, I actually did calligraphy. And calligraphy has lots of muscle kind of work. We do lots of flourishes, and with the flourishes comes lots of lines and movement and ovals and things like that. So we did a lot of those kind of things. Um, and that's where I've actually developed a lot of my muscle memory. So after that thin stroke, the next stroke that I want us to try out is really our moon-shaped stroke. So for our moon-shaped stroke, we really want to have the tip of our brush on the paper, and notice that now I'm holding it at a different angle. Before I was holding it upright, right? And now I'm holding it at a different angle. And what I want us to do is really just be pressing down and notice that I'm kind of curving it and then slowly lifting and tapering it out, right? Do it slowly, because if you exercise, you know that you can build abs if you do slow crunches and not fast crunches. So we're going to do slow crunches. And also, friends, you don't build abs by doing one sit-up. So take your time to do lots of sit-ups, lots of reps. And in this moon shape, I want you to ask yourself how it feels like to rest your whole brush down, pressing it down, and then lifting it up and having that tapered mark. Okay? Now, of course, you can complete your moon shape by, filling the other side. Then you get your kind of leaf shape. Of course, that's much bigger. Now, the reason why I didn't ask you to do a leaf shape and I asked you to do a moon shape, because I know the leaf shape is one of those, where you press down and you lift back up, right? It's because I want you to focus or try out creating your leaves with more movement where it is moving and not always like this. Because if I were to draw a stem that is also straight, it's going to look very stiff compared to if I were to use this stem here, I'm just going to extend it, right? And I'm going to add my leaf that is moon shape in different directions. And you're going to see that there is so much more movement. This is what I mean by creating your brush strokes with movement in mind already. Okay, so you're moving with your brush and you're basically pulling it to this direction. And, press down, lift, and lift off quickly just to see how it feels at the end when you taper. Do it in different directions. So it doesn't only have to be moon, it can be a short one too, right? Even wriggle it a little just to see. All right. So how are you guys doing? So we've got 2 strokes down now. And very often this moon-shaped leaf is really going to be your stroke where you are putting pressure on your brush. Now, if you hold it at a further angle, right? Let's hold it up at a further angle where we're kind of lying down. Then you're going to notice that it kind of makes the shape, which is the width of the brush. So that's why the bigger the brush, the better, because you can get wider widths. And that's why I love the cat's tongue brush and also, some of the other brushes that I've been playing with, right? Holding it further down and further away and kind of seeing how it feels like. Okay? Then from there, you're kind of going to find out where your sweet spot is, where it comes to holding your brush. Maybe it's somewhere here, maybe it's somewhere here, maybe it's somewhere here. And I'm not someone to say you need to or should do it a certain way or hold it in a certain style, because I always feel like this is really part of you connecting with your painting and moving with the space that you have and the tool that you're holding. Okay, because maybe for some of you, you feel like, oh, when I'm doing my leaves towards me, it feels so much more freeing, or away from me. Oh, I really love that kind of mark. So, and also depending on your handedness, right or left hand, that's also going to impact how you actually move with your brush. Now that we have done with this one, let's explore the next stroke. And this is going to be our C shape. So I love the C shape because you see, this is the C shape. It's very close to the leaf shape, right? This is letter C. But I believe that C can be in different directions. Notice how I'm curving and moving around with my brush and then tapering it, right? And every time I taper, I lift off. And you can add another C stroke here. And really, you're building your flower with a number of C strokes, a smaller C stroke or a leaf stroke there, another C stroke here that is wider. And of course, you don't have to close it up. It's up to you where it comes to. I'm just giving an example of just going around with the stroke. And one of the things that I like to do when I'm painting my florals is I like to paint from the outside in. I feel like it's easier for me to go from the outside and I taper it inwards. And this is where I have multiple C strokes moving around. So my brush was kind of attacking my cup, so I had to move it aside. Okay? So we're just making marks and we're just putting them together into your flower if you like. Okay? Don't have to fuss about whether it looks like a flower or not yet. We're just putting marks together. And of course, these are elongated. You can make a much shorter version. You can combine your C strokes with different strokes. You can overlap your marks as well. And sometimes your C stroke can be a thin one, where it's just a very small little mark that you're making, like what I have here. I'm using the tip of my brush. So you're basically varying the movement that you can get. And you're going to see a lot of this in the retreat, some of these C marks. Okay? Now you can vary with having some of them long and some of them short. Again, it depends on how much you have in terms of space. But having it long also means that you're using more of your forearm versus using your finger. You're also going to notice that you kind of change up the way you hold your brush instantly when you make smaller marks. Now let's do the M stroke. This is how letter M looks like. And M can be like this, can be like this, can be like this, can be like this. So many ways of M, right? So take out a pen or take out an exercise book that you want to doodle different versions and variations of M. So it reminds you that M does not only look like this. So with your M stroke, you can get something like this. Notice how I'm overlapping it. So I'm not really leaving a gap. So if you're talking about this M stroke, it's really like this essentially, right? Because there's so much overlap. And I want you to notice how I'm always tapering off that last stroke there. So these are some of my favorite strokes that I like to make when I'm painting my loose florals. And my M's, I don't always do them in one stroke. Sometimes I lift it off. And while I'm doing this exercise, also notice how I'm varying my paint and water ratio. So here I've got a lot more pigment on my brush. And here I have a lot less, so it's lighter in color and still using the same color throughout. Small little M here. So you see, you can vary the marks, you can vary the pressure, and then you can ask yourself if you want to taper it or if you don't. Okay? Right. I'm so excited with all the new things that you guys are learning with me. Um, so give yourself time to practice some of these. Ask yourselves the question of, again, which part of the handle you are holding the brush, whether or not you are using your fingers or your wrists or your elbow, because all of this is going to determine the movement depending on how much space you have. and also asking yourself what kind of marks you are replicating. Now, today I don't have a reference photo that I'm sharing with you, but I often have just this painting, not painting, this photograph in front in my on my desk close by, because it just gives me ideas and reminders that petals are not always thick. Sometimes they're thin, sometimes they are smaller, right? And if you have an idea of different petal shapes, it's easier for you to match what your brush can do with what you see, not the other way around. Because if you start here and you try and match it, what happens is that we are forcing it to look this way. But instead, knowing what your tool is already able to do and then matching it with what you see here is going to take off a lot of the stress that you're actually feeling of getting it to look like the outcome. Because you see, we're loose floral artists, we're not botanical watercolor artist. So you don't have to make it look super duper accurate. Nobody's going to test you. Nobody's going to say like, oh, that does not look like a, whatever flower that they think it is. And you can, and that's the thing, it's open to interpretation. So this painting here is a mixture of a number of different brushstrokes, right? And over here, one of the things that I did a lot of was also doing things like leaving out white spaces, a lot of dry brush marks, or marks that looks like dry brush marks, but they're actually really just very thin C marks. Okay? And it's the same here as well. And here. So it mimics your C marks, but really it is, your dry brush marks, but really it's your C marks. Okay? Another one that I want to show you guys is this one here, where I've got my M strokes around here, and also here, and here. And you don't see it because layers have been added on top of it. So in this comparison here, one of the things that I was trying to show our brush movement members, which is in our new um, floral class, a workshop where we are doing composition, is how brushwork can also be translated with different edges, right? You can have soft edges and then you can have hard edges as well. And this is all dependent on your brush, on how much water you have on your brush and how much water you have on your paper. Now, I want to do the last stroke. And our last stroke is a combination of a lot of the things that we have done, the thin strokes and the thick strokes. Okay, we're going to do a combination of those two. And we're going to basically make them into your C strokes and your M strokes. So you don't have to have both of these pressure, but in fact, what you can do is that you can start having some to be thick and some to be thin. So I'm just going to put them up there. And we're going to play with having thin strokes, thick strokes. And when you are doing this exercise or when you are learning about how you can play around with having thin and thick strokes, you are basically learning how to alternate the pressure in your muscles. Because naturally, when we are writing, we keep an even pressure throughout and we don't alternate our muscle memory, which is why building that muscle memory becomes so important as a painter, just because naturally we tend to put our weight on the table and on the pen. And then we keep even pressure throughout as long as our paper is not shaking or we're not painting or drawing in a moving vehicle, right? So doing some of that is so important. Being able to get the thin and the thick strokes. And then trying to elongate so many more of them. having that combination. And noticing how the curves provide a lot of movement to the painting in comparison to if it was just straight. I want you to see that over the last 15 minutes that we've been spending some time making the different marks, I have not done this where I'm just pressing and lifting. I am moving with the brush. It's almost like I'm basically just holding on to it, and whatever I'm doing with my arm is how the brush moves, and not so much on just putting the brush on paper and dabbing the paint or spreading it. Okay, so you really want to just move as minimally as possible. So this is one of those skills in our stage 4 and 5 where artists are able to use minimal strokes but capture maximum loose florals. The least strokes you need in order for you to capture a loose floral is definitely something that our stage 4 and 5 artists are able to do, right? Okay. So while there has been, you know, 45 minutes of talking and then a bombardment of 20 minutes of all of these different strokes, I just want you to tell me in the chat what is the stroke that felt good for you and what is the stroke that was new that you are going to try. So put it down in the chat and let me know. Because what we're going to do next is we're going to put them all together and we're going to try and combine them and make them into florals, right? I love the M stroke, Bonnie. The M stroke is my absolute favorite. I don't know why. I mean, I've seen the S stroke, but I don't use the S stroke a lot. Um, I just love, love, love the M stroke. I love that you can overlap it with so many things. And really just combining all the different strokes together. My C's, my, and ta-da, I call it a flower. So I think that we are overthinking so much of our strokes. And instead of doing this, where we are just moving with our brush, right? But instead, work with the brush and move it in different directions and just feel that power of being able to express with the brush as a tool more than that it's just something to help you to achieve a specific shape, if you will. Okay? So yes, experimenting with the thick and the thin M stroke. That's definitely fun. The thin, right? Another thin one. And I'm such a fan of leaving white space. And you're going to see that a lot during the retreat because I have got flowers where we leave out white space, even here, leaving out white space. So not filling it all in because I strongly believe that loose florals is also about letting the viewer fill in the gaps for you. Look at this beautiful M stroke with the thick and the thin over here, right? And here is the difference between a composition with movement and without. It's the same flowers, but the only difference that I've made to them is to change up the way the leaves are moving, the shapes of the leaves, the color values. So while this one works, if let's say I were to cover up this painting, yes, it works. There's nothing wrong with it. But when you have another comparison next to it, where it shows you the possibility of just changing up the leaves and dressing it different, it reflects a lot more movement straight away just because of how the leaves have been placed. Okay, I'm going to show you another one, this time with florals, where you can have the flower be of the same stroke. So we don't vary the brush stroke so much. The only thing we really varied was the color value. And then if we change up the brush strokes where we have some to be wider and bigger and some to be shorter and smaller, straight away it showcases movement and also varying the sizes of the flowers, here having smaller ones compared to here. And you can see that these strokes, while it looks okay on its own as well, there is no um, difference really. But then when you put them side by side, you can see the difference. The difference also in the placement with the leaves, the strokes that you actually get. And all of this is brush strokes, my friend. So let's put all of this together and paint a couple of florals that are loose, and also from your imagination. Now, speaking of from your imagination, when we left school, we all left school painting the 5 petal flower. It is a great skeleton for us to start with, but this is why I use reference photos when I paint, even though I paint loosely. I use it because I don't want to have repetitive floral marks. I use it so that I'm able to see that, oh, there are some petals that are shorter and some that are longer. And that's why references are important to me. And that's why, and this is also one of those workshops that I communicated in our No Formula Florals 3.0. So, in 1.0, we just purely did brushwork. And then 2.0, we did floral perspectives in different directions. So this is an example of floral perspectives in different directions. And then 3.0, we did on references. So yes, so that's why I love, love, love references. And Pinterest or floral books are great spaces. And I think one of the key ideas when it comes to references is to make sure that you have got a couple that are very fun in terms of, direction or even the petals. Notice how they are not close together and some of them are spaced further apart. So these are just observations, mental notes for you to think about when you are painting your loose florals or, there is overlapping petals. Um, and then also thinking about like edges of your florals, because what we're capturing for loose florals are your edges. You're also capturing the overall shape because the overall shape is going to give you direction. And then you're also starting to think about, where the center is. But really, if you paint and focus on the silhouette of the flower, you can put the center anywhere and then call it a flower as well, because no one's going to test you on that. So let's try putting a couple of marks together. And Tammy says, I don't know where to start the M stroke. So I just want to do a quick demonstration so that we can help Tammy out, and when we are doing the putting things together, she's not going to get lost. So let's do that. I'm glad that Tammy is asking questions. So if any of you guys have got any questions as well, let's answer them. So with the M stroke, knowing that M looks like this, right? You can start from the bottom. Let's just do a regular M, okay? From the bottom, coming down, from the bottom, coming down. And this is an M where I just use the side of my brush. Notice how I'm holding it. And I'm just swishing the side of my brush to capture this M shape. And the difference is that earlier on I was saying that our M's, we don't have to make this like this, but we can play around with them having shorter on one side and longer on another side, for example. Or we can have one longer on this side and it drops off shorter here. So there are different ways in which we can do the M. So let's try some of those ways. So again, I'm starting from the bottom. And every time I start from the bottom, because I am doing it with a round brush, I try and do it at an angle so that my first stroke is already tapered. Do you see that? It's already tapered. You see, if I start like this, I'm going to get like a flat line. And I don't want a flat line. I want a tapered stroke. So starting at an angle is great. Okay, my brush is fighting with my cups again. So starting at a taper and going up and then coming down and then overlap and then going up again and then coming down. Okay? So hopefully this slower demonstration helped you. I'm sorry, I'm using like random parts of my paper. This is 100% cotton, friends. So I want you to use good quality paper, even when making marks, because you need to test drive on good paper. Um, and when you are doing this, and when you reach the end, one of the things that you can do is you can flick it. So then you get a tapered mark. So the last stroke is really where you are moving a little bit faster. So another thing that we want to think about when we're moving with our brush as well is also considering how fast and how slow you are moving with your brush. You don't want to go too quick and you don't want to go too slow either, because the slowness is where you are kind of pushing against that brush. And sometimes when you're pushing against that brush, the water kind of seeps out and then you get a puddle there because it's too slow. So you want to play around with that. Now, I am going to do a couple of flowers now, and I'm going to zoom in closer. Hopefully my brush doesn't fight with the camera. Um, So we're gonna do a mixture of some of these strokes. So how are we doing, friends? I want you to, before we start, let's restart a little. I want you to tell me, how are you feeling in one word? Go in the chat. Tell me, how are you feeling in one word? Let's go, let's go. One word. Where are the words? Okay, the words are coming. I'm excited. I see growing, better, happy, relaxed, calm, refreshed, excited, loose, learning, confident. Oh my gosh, these words are so much better than the first 3 marks that you guys made when you first came in. Encouraged, relaxed, excited. Isn't that new things that you're learning now? Oh, I'm so glad that we're doing um this live session, because the last couple of retreats that I've done, it always jumps into like, okay, friends, let's paint all these flowers. And then I see the different paintings and I want to say so many different things about brushwork and all that. And then we only take it at a Q&A, which I feel by then, like sometimes, if we can start with the intention of practicing the skills, it really helps to help you to hone in on the application. Mm. So let's see what else I see. I see refreshed, excited, loose, learning, confident, good, excited, relaxed, encouraged, confident, excited, love it, enjoying, learning, I'm enjoying, smile. Okay. Thank you, friends, for this, because and I hope that you can go back into the replay and of course check out this more. But here is where we're going to play with our brushes now. Now, speaking of paint and water ratio, which we talked about before, right? So there are different ways in which we want to manage how much water there is in your brush. And that whole topic is, oh my gosh, another topic for another day. But let's just start by having different color values on our flowers that we're going to be painting. Okay, so when I say different color values, this means that we're going to have some to be lighter and some to be darker in color value. So this is just an example. So we've got light color value, dark color value, right? And this depends on how much water there is, because with light, you get more water, and then with dark, you got more pigment. Okay? So that's what we're going to be playing with beyond just the strokes. So two things. So let's start with the strokes. And, since we have done our different strokes, I'm going to do the moon-shaped stroke. In fact, what I encourage you to do now is to build your own flower. Just think about the different strokes. Like I've got my moon-shaped stroke here. I dip my brush in water and I'm going to, go with another color and going to do a moon-shaped stroke in the other direction. And I am going to do an M-shaped stroke here, right? Can you guys see? I know the reflection of the water is just, ah, but it's kind of good because you can see the timing of my paper. You can see why I want to dab and charge in paint, right? And then we can do another leaf-shaped stroke and the other way instead. See, a flower. Look, Ma, I made a flower. And then painting with water, where I just have water on my brush, and you can kind of drag out pigment from the other petal before doing my leaf-shaped stroke. Oh, another leaf-shaped stroke. And notice how I'm just bringing all of my strokes kind of towards the center, you know? So I know I'm painting really light now. So let me just juice it up a little bit. Let's see the combination of strokes that you can make when you are painting your florals. And you know, if it's too wet, remove the water, use your brush to lift because it's more than just a paint applicator, as we said. It's also a water management tool. While it's still wet, I love to charge, and just play around with um, adding in more paint. Next, we're gonna go for something wider maybe. So using the side of my brush and again doing that moon shape, closing it up with another moon here. You notice how I don't overlap my strokes. I try and keep them separate. So now we're just really making marks. We're just pressing against our brush and then seeing what we can do. The C shape, okay? And since we're just playing with marks, don't be afraid of just pulling out shapes. And then just see like, oh, when I press on my brush, can I match a thin stroke with a thick stroke? Yes, you can. Why not? Who said no? I just love that my paper is still kind of wet, so then I can play with adding in some color. So I'm gonna just make marks where I'm adding in some leaves, some stems maybe, just playing around with making marks instead of making flowers. And when you start to see that your florals are a sum of different marks, you're going to move away from having them look a certain way. Okay? Take the time to do take a C stroke maybe. See how it feels to make a big one and then taper it at the end. Then do another one here. Notice how I'm pressing and holding it at an angle, right? and then changing the color value. So you're noticing how I'm just mixing and matching some really big strokes with some very dark, small strokes. So what you're doing is that you are varying the strokes that you can make with your brush by playing. The more you play with your brush and really get to know its potential, the easier it is for you to see flowers, if that makes sense. I'm having so much fun, guys. It's been a while since I just sat down and painted with just, you know, just marks. Sometimes it's easy to just feel like every painting needs to have an objective or it needs to be controlled. And then experimenting with painting with just water, just laying out water, for example, like this one here is just water and some leftover paint on my brush. And then kind of charging in paint and noticing that I'm doing a lot of those moon shape, but at the same time, I'm also like adding pressure and really pressing against it. So then you get some really nice um, dark strokes. And, I just dab the center and straight away I've got that center of that flower. And before we panic and feel like we need to do more, let's just dab in more paint. Then see where that takes us. This is our wet in wet, right? Just playing with the possibility. Okay? So how are you guys feeling? Which mark have you guys been doing that you enjoy the most or you're noticing a lot on your paper as you are putting them together? Which mark has it been so far that you are noticing a lot of that keeps appearing? And this is really how you identify your comfort, what you're most comfortable with, what feels good for you, which are all very, very important when you're developing your artistic direction, your style, basically, right? And style does not have to come from stage five or stage four, but it's a really a slow thing, a slow process where you're noticing things and you're going like, that felt right, that felt good. Okay, and then that's kind of like something that you shape at the back of your mind. And you see, I'm just making these brush marks and flicks, and they are kind of like adding in space into my paintings. Where, yes, that leaf looks very far away and very lonely, but I like it because it's giving spaciousness from the rest of the bouquet or the paintings that you see here. So Lorraine says that she's been doing the M stroke, Valentina too, and Teresa says the C stroke. Amazing, good, good. So excited. Making marky mark strokes. Then we think about your layers, which honestly is optional. The moment you have set the stage for your beautiful flowers, whether or not you add layers or not is optional. You can add to some places, or you can choose not to do any layers at all. It's up to you. But I'm enjoying just piecing together different marks, isn't it? And sometimes that's exactly what we need to let go. And this is all just one layer so far. Just playing with your marks in different directions and just doing a reflection with you, noticing how I'm pulling at different angles. So it's very easy for us to think that our strokes need to lean the same direction, like the wind is blowing it in the same direction. So this is what I mean by same direction, right? Yes, same direction is good, looks harmonious. But what if we do this, experiment with this and this? Wow, now it's a different direction. Now we are playing, right? It's easy to think that these are thin strokes, everything else needs to be thin strokes. But what if I added a thick stroke next to it? Ah, what can that be then? So it's like all about experimenting with pairing. You never know if your boots can go with your dress or sports shoes, or should you wear socks with your sandals? I mean, it's all up to you to try. And I think when we stop feeling like, oh, we need to pair the thin ones with the thin ones, because yes, I know in nature, florals have thin strokes together. But you see, when we are painting loosely, this big stroke here and this is a thin stroke here could just be a reflection in different angles of the petal. Because when your thin stroke is reflected at a different angle, which is your perspective, you're going to get a thin stroke as the capture and not a thick stroke. So I hope that makes sense. So this helps you to see that your pairing does not have to feel like there is a specific formula in that sense, right? Okay. And I feel like that first layer is so important because after that first layer, then everything else is really secondary. Like, how much layers you want to add, whether or not you want to separate your petals, whether or not you want to do negative painting, and so on and so forth. And this really here is your stage 3 and up. So while you are in, depending on what stage you are in, focus on what your painting currently needs. So then that way it's a lot easier for you to stay focused. And also it allows you to get to know your tools, your brush. Like I said, many of us don't stay in stage 1 long enough. We're rushing and we're running away and we just want to do the thing, which is the fun thing, whether it's painting the rose or painting the whatever that you're choosing. But in doing so, we are forgetting how to move and express. And I want us to focus more on that for this retreat. So I'm going to stop here and I am going to ask the floor if you guys got any questions for me so that we can also explore a little bit more about how this feels. And there are some things that I have talked about on YouTube before, if I'm not wrong, about, overworking, where sometimes we make dabbing marks and we go over the same spot over and over again. And those dabbing marks also come with, again, your brush being more than just a paint applicator, but a water control device. And if you have too much water in here, this is where the overworking happens, especially if your paper is not fully dry and it's damp, then that's where things are going to happen. There's going to be lifting, accidental lifting, there's going to be movement, and we're basically disrupting the page while it's still drying. So these are things for you to think about. So in terms of troubleshooting, really, when it comes to our brush, there are so many different things, but the most important is that you move with your brush and see what the potential is in terms of all the marks that you can make. And then from there, try and find flowers in the marks instead of making a flower from a mark. So there is a difference in that aspect, especially while you're still in stage 1 and 2, unless you are trying to paint more realistic nude florals like these, for example, which I did from the flower color guide. Um, you know, creating my leaf strokes, right? And then you see how the leaf strokes also appear in smaller flowers like these. And these are all with different brush shapes. This one here was with a flat brush. These are all here with a flat brush also. So depending on what brush shape you choose, you're going to get different marks. Okay, so let's see if we've got questions. I'm going into the chat now, friends. So Tanya says, first of all, thank you so much for this session. I had such an amazing time. So question, when you are putting in a darker, smaller petal, for example, on layer 2, how do you decide where to suggest a petal? I love this question because this is where your reference photo comes in. You see, if you were painting this one, you will be able to see like, there's one petal that's on top of this petal, and then you're painting and you see, and this is where you get the opportunity to kind of figure out where you want to divide or where you want to define certain petals, right? Um, and this here is an example where you are defining certain petals here, where you are adding in a little bit more paint. So then you are adding in more shadow here to define these two petals. Similarly with these. And I think that in terms of how you decide is often dependent on what are you painting from? What's the picture telling you? So then that way you can go, these two petals are together. How do I separate them? Now the problem also comes in where if the color values is very dark like here, then I won't be able to do any separation because there is no point trying to lift enough so that there's going to be a separation, but I'm just going to leave that be. So you got to kind of have to be strategic about it and think about, like, for example, separating these petals here. So this is actually one of those questions that we got inside of brush movement as well in our Q&A. So you see, I'm separating it by adding in a different color value in this particular flower. So now it's drying, but you can see I'm lifting it up. I'm separating it just by glazing over it. And then from that, it doesn't have to be very much darker. Yes, this one is very dark. And then this one, you can do it in a lighter consistency as well, right? And if we look at inside of our portal, let me just see. I think we definitely have this question of separating our petals. I've been rewatching and watching our Q&A so much and cutting them down that I can remember what are the questions that we have and where they are at. Um, and I think it's over here under layering where we are. They're here. One of them is here, painting petals using the transparency. Um, layering, second layer to blend or not to blend. How to add the second layer. Layering hard versus soft shadows. So there are many different methods if you think about it in terms of like, separating, whether it's separating your petals or even thinking about how you want to define specific petals. Like say you want to have a petal that's kind of sticking out in the front. So how to do negative and positive painting for shadows, for example, that's there as well. So that will be another one where you can get answers. And I think also inside floral perspective and direction. Um, here, painting strategy for side-facing flowers. Because I think one of the things around side-facing flowers that's really tricky is that how do we define the front bunch and the back bunch, right? Or even folded petals. I remember Evelyn asked this question. And multi-petal flowers here as well. How to paint folded petals in florals. So yeah, so that I hopefully this helps you a little with, helping you to see how to actually define where you layer to suggest a petal. So you can see now it has dried up and you can actually see that there's a definition between the petals, just having that really, really soft, thin line over there. And you can see I did not use a very thick consistency, so you can do a very, very thin one also. I can do another one here where I'm just defining or adding in this so that that way you can actually kind of get a more defined line, if you will, when it comes to like defining your petals. But really, I feel like this depends on your painting, how much or how little you want to define some of the things in your paintings. You can never stop. This is the fun part. You can never stop. The more you know, the more you will never stop. Um, I can't stop nowadays when I'm painting. But I no longer paint in one seating. Like painting like this took me two or three seatings to keep coming back to a few times before I'm happy with how it looks and where it's at. Also with the 5,000 layers and things like that. So I hope that this was helpful for you guys. I'm actually curious to see your paintings and how it's been. Nicole says, I hope to paint soon. I hope so too. I can't wait to see it in the Discord chat for sure. Let's see. Are we ready to show what you were doing so far? I still see some busy brushes moving around. I just love it. All the busy brushes. I am going to change up to gallery view so we can see what you guys have been up to. Painting in the car isn't ideal. Of course, Nicole, you should not be painting the car. Um, let's see, friends. I hope that this session, oh, Tanya, thank you for being the first brave one to share. I see notes. Oh my gosh, I love the conscientiousness. Bonnie, that's so beautiful. I see a lot of lovely direction. Oh, Teresa, such big fluffy petals that you have. Oh my gosh, so good. This is so fun to see. I will be painting later today. Okay, that's good. But anyway, friends, while you are here, whether you're watching this live or the replay, I would love for you to. Oh, I see more paintings. Thank you so much. Is it Ifat? Um, thank you for sharing, and I would love for you guys to share it in our Facebook group. Very, very important because that way I can see, I can comment, I can tell you. You can share with me your experience too. Thank you so much, Diane, for sharing your painting. And I hope that this was useful for you. Now, before we end off today's session, I just want you to write one intention that you have for the next 5 days in this retreat. um, you know, an intention like something that you learned today that you want to practice, or something that you have been meaning to do more of. Put it down in the chat so then we can hold each other accountable. Maybe there might be some others who might give you ideas as well. I think setting an intention is good. Carol says, go with the flow. Don't be afraid to paint without a reference. So right, Bonnie. Sometimes I paint without reference. That's totally terrified um because I'm just like, oh, I don't know how it looks, right? And I don't know what it feels like. So Julie asked, will I be live each day? So this is actually a 5 day retreat. Usually I've done it 3 days, and like I've just learned that 3 days is just not enough. It is just like it's so short, like literally I I would be saying, hi guys, it's day one, and then day two I'll be like, tomorrow's the last day, and I'm like, what? So fast? So it doesn't make sense. So I made it a 5 day one. And so we are gonna have a release of floral that you can try painting with, all of which we are using the round brush. I'm focusing mostly on the round brush this time. And we are going to be also just doing another live session on Friday. So on Friday, we're gonna create a composition. And, with all of the flowers that we have done, that we're going to be doing, right? So we're going to be doing these flowers throughout the 5 days. And depending on whether you want to put it on like this or you want to paint it on individual pieces of paper, that's really up to you. I have to say that the pressure gets higher the more you paint it like this, which is fun for me because I love pressure. And what we're going to do is that, I want to show you how you can kind of think about putting them into a composition from start to finish, but playing with expanding beyond what we have done. So that's going to be on Sunday. So that's our live session. So I can't wait for you to do that. And then after Sunday, we're going to have 2 days where we're just going to have implementation. So I know it's a 5 day retreat, but at the end of the 5 days, the post retreat, you've got so much energy and you've got so much excitement. We want to kind of just digest and wind down with whatever that we have learned and put it to practice. And I'm going to give you an assignment to try out where you are going to paint your own bouquet with the flowers that you've done. Because in brush movement, this month's class, which is actually season 2 of this, so this is actually season 1. And then for season 2, I did another group of florals. And well, I think it's so much easier if I do this here. But I did another group of florals. And with this group of florals, which is for our stage 1 artists, we created a few different variations. So that's my challenge for you in terms of the assignment, is to create different variations where from this, you can paint this. So basically, we're doing floral studies singularly, and then we're going to put it into together, right? And this is our stage 2 and 3. So we're going to do something like this on our live session on Sunday, where we're going to put things together. And then there is another live session on Tuesday where we are going to go a little bit wilder and crazier, because this time we're going to talk about like composition rules, the 3 different things that we use in composition that is more than just layouts. Because I feel like, I watch YouTube videos on composition and I feel this sense of frustration when the only thing I hear about composition is, oh, guys, let's think about where you want to place your flowers. Is it a C shape, a M shape, or a S shape? But there is so much more than that, like when it comes to composition. This is an example of composing, where you are thinking beyond just layouts, but you're also thinking about shape, you're thinking about direction, and similar with this. So that's actually our day 3. And that workshop is a paid workshop, but it is catered for our stage 3 to 5 artists. So, of course, if you're stage 1 and 2, if you're curious, you're welcome to join us. But I have to say that you do need to have already got good grasp in your brush handling so that it doesn't become that thing that feels like it's kind of blocking how you are moving or thinking about floral arrangements and compositions. So the next time we're gonna meet is Sunday for our live session. But every single day, friends, from today, you are going to meet me at the portal and on our Facebook page, where I will see you inside of our artist passage here. For those of you who have did not missed out on the first part and have just joined us, it is all going to be inside the artist passage portal, 5stages.brushmovement.com. And here is where you will get your video release every day. So today's has been dropped, first day 1, 14th of May. Tomorrow it'll be dropped and the video release timing is here. So then you know what time it will be released. And our replay, today's replay will be here. And day 5 replay will be here. So our live sessions, you will know when the next live session is over here. So hopefully this clarifies it for you guys. And is helpful. All right. And then of course, I'll see you on the Facebook group as well. So don't forget to get on there. I will be putting in like reflective questions and things like that. Like I want to know different things. Which flowers are you most excited to apply. Um, and we also have cheerleaders who will be, cheering you on, our community members from Brush Movement. So if you see them talk about your post and your art, don't forget to say hi because they are also, learning together with you. So hopefully this is helpful. Thank you so much, friends, for being here. And I really hope that in the beginning where I had mentioned that this brush thing is no, it's not just a stage one thing. It's more than just stage one, friends. Okay, your brush is your language. So embrace that. Thank you so much. And I will see you again, guys, in the chat. Bye, everybody.